I said no reacties today. This isn't really going to be reacties. I thought I'd share this with you, though, because you might not have heard about it. From the Standard. Man guilty of abusing MP Clive Lewis after he backed trans breastfeeding. Clive Lewis was at the center of a social media storm after he backed transgender breastfeeding. MP Clive Lewis was branded as a nonce and a pedophile in a string of abusive Facebook posts after he publicly supported trans women breastfeeding babies. A court has heard. Call a politician a pedo, get arrested. Sounds like something a pedo would make happen. I don't know. Call me crazy. Fogg, 40, targeted the Labour MP for Norwich South in July last year after the politician signed a petition in support of Mika Minio-Paluella. He was among a raft of Labour MPs who publicly offered their support, with Mr. Lewis also taking to social media to write, "Proud to have signed this. Bring your insults. It just strengthens our resolve." So he solicited insults, someone obliged and called him a pedo, and then they were arrested for doing what he asked. I'm going to be real. I think you should be able to call politicians any name you want. But on top of that, the guy asked for it. The MP literally asked for people to do it. He literally said, "Bring your insults." He told them to do it. Surely that should count as incitement, even if it's towards yourself. If someone doing what they're asked is illegal, shouldn't you, as a politician telling people to do it, bear some responsibility in terms of incitement? Okay, who is this Mika Minio-Paluella? Paluella. What the f***? Ah! So there was a petition in support of this beautiful lady. In the end, I only breastfed my child for a few weeks. I then had to stop because I had a cancer relapse and didn't want to poison my child. Here's me on the bus to hospital for the first chemo round, feeding my child for the last time. Imagine being breastfed by Richard Dawkins. Oh, Chris Chan breast milk ice cream. This politician signed a petition in support of this wonderful lady, and said to people, "Bring your insults." Got called a pedo, and then the guy who called him a pedo was arrested, I believe. Westminster Magistrates Court heard Fogg, who lives alone in Great Yarmouth, joined in a growing online storm over the issue, posting on Facebook and sharing comments with Mr. Lewis's own page. Look, it's totally normal for a baby to have like hairs pulled out of its throat. It's normal with breastfeeding, okay? Prosecutor Nathan Payne Davies said Mr. Lewis was accused of not caring about child safety and was then called a nonce and a paedophile. So, Fogg also called the MP's office, leaving a voicemail repeating the abusive slurs and suggesting Mr. Lewis would like to have a child sucking on his nipple. How's this part bad? I thought this was brave and wonderful. I thought this was a good thing to do. The defendant finished the voicemail by stating, "I'm Paul Fogg, come and nick me." What is wrong with these people? This guy goes, "Hey, I think, how can I describe this situation without getting banned? I think babies desire male milk. Now insult me." And in response, a guy insulted him, but then the guy who insulted him said, "I'm insulting you. Now arrest me." And then was arrested. What are you doing? The abuse. Babies need man milk, says MP Clive Lewis. This is Paul Fogg, by the way. This is the guy who called the MP a pedo. Is that a face tattoo? What am I looking at? Oh, the abuse aimed at the MP happened after Miss Minio-Paluella, a transgender woman who was born male. Is there any other kind? Appeared on ITV's News at 10 to speak about rising bills and commenting that it is tough if you're a mum. Come on, dude. When a breast pump was spotted in the footage by viewers... No. Come on. There is absolutely a trend of people who get off on doing woman stuff. Oopsie! I accidentally... Appearing on TV, I accidentally showed everyone that I, a trans woman, use a breast pump to feed my child. I accidentally had that in the shot. Whoops! It's just so normal. Everyone should see that I do it. Sure. Okay. Took to Twitter to say that trans women can breastfeed. Can, yes. should? I don't know, it seems kind of weird. Mr. Lewis signed a petition set up in solidarity after abuse was aimed at Miss Minio Paluella. I mean, cis men can breastfeed. Some lactate. Just, for some people I'm aware, it just happens. They don't even need to try. Ian Fisher, representing Fogg, said he was drinking heavily at the time, mixed with medication for back and stomach problems, which had forced him to stop working as an asbestos removal specialist. Suffering from social isolation and depression, Mr. Fisher said Fogg saw a headline on a local news website, read the story about the MP's intervention, and delved into the comments as they developed like wildfire. He is not a man in a field in the dark shouting in the wind, but he doesn't have much of a following. How about too bad you're a politician, eat shit, it's comments. How about eat shit, you're a public servant. Deal with people calling you names. He read the comments, followed the thread, and started to get worked up. And he jumped on the bandwagon. I would rather a politician be mentally destroyed than risk any sort of restrictions preventing legitimate commentary. I would rather 1 million slurs be said to a politician than one legitimate criticism be silenced because of any sort of policy that's meant to stop those slurs or insults. Mr. Fisher said Fogg doesn't have much of a social media platform himself, though he is not a man in a field in the dark shouting in the wind, but he doesn't have much of a following. He said Fogg has now quit alcohol. And except it was a very disgraceful and abhorrent thing to do. Calling a politician a pedo is just a bit of fun, to be honest. Unless it's true, then I could imagine that being very hard for them to hear, very scary for them to hear, that someone is onto them. Anyway, Chief Magistrate Paul Goldspring said Mr. Lewis had expressed in a victim statement, which was not read aloud in court, that he suffered substantial distress after the abuse from Fogg. Come on. And you're going to stand up for your constituents? Some guy calling you a pedo? You're never going to stand up for your constituents against anything if you can't. If you can't handle this guy calling you a pedo, step down. You shouldn't represent anyone. People seem to think MPs, because they put themselves in the public domain, should have a thicker skin. But they are victims and should be treated as victims like anybody else, said the judge. Holy f***. I hate the UK. 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 Oh my God. You might say that the dictator should have a thicker skin, but calling him cringe is a crime, just like it would be if you called anyone else cringe. He can't handle it. He's a victim. Fogg, who pleaded guilty to 2 counts of sending offensive messages under the Malicious Communications Act, 1988. This is the worst thing that exists in the UK. Well, I mean, also the rape gangs, but in terms of legislation that restricts speech, this is the big one. This is the insane one. I believe this is so broad as to cover messages or communications that may have intent to annoy, if I remember correctly. If I remember correctly, being annoying online is a crime in the UK. But it works like... You know how all the major platforms have TOS that is so broad that everyone's violating it in some way at any moment, depending on how you interpret it, and it's just... They need everyone to be violating it so they can remove people and say, oh, you violated this. This is sort of like that, but as law, right? Everyone's kind of breaking the law at all times. It's just when someone with influence decides they want to pursue it, they get you. Was sentenced to 6 weeks. How do you define objectively? You don't. That's the fun part, Nicandros. You don't define that objectively, no. Was sentenced to 6 weeks in prison, suspended for the next year. The judge ordered him to complete 20 rehab sessions, pay £100 compensation to the MP, as well as £85 costs and £154 victim surcharge. Fogg is also banned indefinitely from contacting Mr. Lewis or his constituency office. Restraining order to the benefit of a politician's office, dude. Fuck off. Fuck you.